Alright, hello everyone. So, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be presenting my own Melee tier list. Now, I don't play the game that often concerning competitive level. I do enjoy it for how it's very important at the top level because it's built up such an incredibly interesting community over the past 2 decades. And despite being a game that's 2 years old, it is still alive and well today, and there are still many, many people playing it. And at the top level, it's quite possibly the most popular Smash Brothers game. It's either that or Ultimate. So, with looking at Melee, what I wanted to do today, with getting back into playing competitive Melee recently, and also being someone who's followed the competitive scene on and off for a few years now, I figured I'd make my own tier list because I enjoy doing these. It's fun, it's interesting, you get to talk about this colorful cast of characters, and there's a lot of intrigue behind these kinds of rankings, at least for me. So let's go ahead and look at my ranking system. I've done this ranking system for tier lists as long as I can remember. When I first discovered competitive Smash back in 2009, 2010, around that range. And there are 7 tiers that I like to use. S is the best of the best. This is top tier. If a character gets ranked here, what it basically means is that I think they're possibly the best in the game. Now, I must say before we continue, all of these characters are ranked from best to worst, in my opinion. So, while someone may be first place on this ranking, I do think that whoever else is in S tier, second, third, fourth, fifth, or whoever else, could possibly be first place given the meta shifts in a certain direction, or there are new discoveries found with a character, whether that's, who's ever ranked first, or perhaps someone who was ranked below them and a discovery is made about them. But before I continue, just saying that while rankings do help you understand where exactly I think a character is placed, the tier matters more. The tier itself matters more. So if someone is ranked 8th place in, let's say, A tier, and then the 9th place ranked character is also rated in A, you could flip-flop them, and to be honest, I wouldn't complain too much. But if someone were to move, let's say 9th place down to B, then I'd be a lot more likely to have disagreements, because with looking at S through F, these are the ultimate dictators as to what my opinion is, because how a tier list is designed, the letters are designed to be hard line, while the individual ranks are more so closer to an educated guess of where exactly a character is. So, with that being said, continuing with the definitions, S tier is top tier, best of the best in my opinion. There are very few weaknesses, and if a character does have those weaknesses, I think they're pretty easy to avoid for a competitive player. A tier, I would say, is solid high tier. These characters can do very well at majors, but their weaknesses are a little more notable to the point where it's a step up concerning difficulty if you are a top player and you're trying to win a major. B, I would put as the best of the middle of the road characters. This is the upper part of mid tier. These characters I think are pretty good, but they're not very good. So I think B tier characters can win a major, but concerning winning a major tournament with hundreds, even thousands of players, it's going to be more rare than the S and A tiers. Then C is very middle. This is the mid tier of mid tiers. C average. These characters, I think, are pretty equally good and bad concerning their traits. They're not bad, but they're not really good either. They have some pretty excellent strengths in them, but at the same time, picking them up as your main, if you're a top-level player, might pose a big risk because of the weaknesses being just as strong as their strengths. Then we have D tier. And D tier I would put as the worst of the decent characters, at least at top level. And with D tier, concerning the mid-low realm, I don't think these characters are necessarily bad, but they're closer to being average or mediocre. them bad. Because while they have some pretty solid strengths, their weaknesses not only are just as numerous as their strengths, but I think they're possibly even easier to exploit compared to the C tier character weaknesses. So D tier, I think you could main them at top level. However, out of all the characters, it's probably posing the biggest risk out of the viable quote unquote characters. E tier, the low tier. And while E tier characters, in my opinion, I think could have some solid strengths, overall, I think their weaknesses outweigh their strengths pretty significantly, and you could use them as a counter pick at top level. But for the most part, they're a suboptimal choice, and they can be pretty scary to use at a major level. Then F tier, bottom. These are the garbage characters, where they may have one or two strengths, but for the most part, they're a total chore to play at top level. So that's how I would define all the tiers. Now, I will also say this is also my opinion at top level. Concerning a tier list ranking, this kind of thing doesn't really matter that much at the mid and low level, because concerning how competitive Smash works and competitive fighting games in general, tiers will matter more at top level when characters are being pushed to their max potential. And when characters are pushed to their max potential, that is when the tier gaps start becoming noticed. But if you're at mid or low level, the characters are not being pushed as heavily as top level, so even the low or bottom tiers could be good in certain situations. So this is trying to look at all the characters at top level. And one last thing before this preamble is over, how I decided my rankings was looking at a character's overall toolkit, their approximate matchup spread in the current year, and also their results, both with recent major wins and also for amount of times that they are on the global power ranking concerning use with the top 100 players in the world. So now, let's go ahead and get into this ranking. In last place, I have Bowser, 26. This is probably not a surprise. Normally people put either Bowser or Kirby as the worst character. In Melee, it's very important to be fast. And with Bowser, he's not fast at all. While his dash speed could be worse, his frame data is potentially the worst in the entire game. He's fat and slow concerning his airspeed and frame data, and because of that, he has barely any combos. He's got a couple good moves. I think his Whirling Fortress out of shield is pretty solid, especially on Yoshi's. And along with that, his L-canceled F-air is pretty good. But outside of those two moves and also Get Up Attack, that's only 3 moves in his toolkit. And his other aerials have uses, but they're not as strong. And his ground tilts are just painfully bad. He may have strong knockback on his smash attacks, but the frame data is so terrible that it's a big risk using them. And using Bowser is one massive risk. He might have the worst matchup spread in the game as well, and he might have the most losing matchups and the hardest losing matchups in the entire roster. Might even be worse than Kirby. Speaking of, I'd probably put Kirby in 25th. While his toolkit is also painfully bad, especially his throws, I think he has a couple more moves than Bowser to make him slightly better than him, but only slightly. And even then, if you were to flip-flop these two, I wouldn't mind that much. With Kirby, he's got some decent aerials. His back air is pretty good, not as good as Puff's, who he's often compared to, but it can still do very well in bind. His up air is pretty good, and I also like his down air when you're trying to edge guard. And his F air is pretty reliable concerning getting some damage. But a lot of his other moves just don't work. Neutral air has much startup, despite being an aerial, and has very bad range. His tilts are pretty useless. His grabs, again, are awful, and he is weak. His smash attacks don't KO as early as they do in other games, and it's very noticeable here. But one of the biggest things I can't stand about Kirby's kit is that despite having multiple jumps, his airspeed is slow, and his up B doesn't go that far as well, so his recovery despite being this floaty balloon character, is on the poor side. And that's just sad. And I actually kind of like playing as Kirby, so that's a shame. 24th, I would put Zelda. The joke's been said that down B is her best move, where you transform into Sheik. And, well, that's very true. Now, with Zelda, I don't think she's as bad as Kirby and Bowser, in my opinion, because of her lightning kicks, and also some of her grab stuff can be useful, and she has some good damage on her aerials, and because she isn't like Bowser, she's harder to combo because she's floaty, even though she's a tall-ish target, and her recovery is also significantly better than Kirby and Bowser. It may be a bit telegraphed and linear, but it's very long. And I think that helps her a lot concerning getting back to the stage, obviously, but in general, it makes her disadvantage significantly better than Kirby and Bowser. And I think at this low level, if you have anything significant separating you from other characters, then it's enough to bump you higher. Especially where with these characters, their meta is not as developed as better characters. 23rd, I would still put Pichu in the bottom tier, but if I were doing more tiers, which I'm not going to, but if I were, I'd probably put him in F plus or E minus. Because Pichu, the self-damage is very significant, and that's a shame. He's the easiest character to KO in the game. His range is awful, and that doesn't help. But he has a couple things making him better than the bottom three. And despite being designed to be the worst character, he's somehow better than these three, at least in my opinion. The lowest I've seen him recently is 24th. And I've seen some people even put him as high as 19th. Well, Mewtwo King specifically. But with looking at Pichu, Pichu has a surprisingly decent combo game if you're looking at his aerials. And I like how fast he is. And he's got a good recovery. The knockback on his smash attacks is also pretty good. Concerning his smash attacks and knockback, if I'm recalling correctly, he can be as strong as Pikachu even, with certain smash attacks. I think his forward smash specifically. However, with Pichu's kit, hurting itself, being very easy to KO, very bad attack range, I'd say the worst attack range in the entire game for sure. This hurts him a lot because despite having a good recovery, his disadvantaged state can be pretty problematic and scary to be in. His advantage state, you can get some good combos, but with his bad range, it can make it harder to maintain that. And concerning his neutral, you have to depend a lot on neutral air because it's one of those moves that has good priority, but a bunch of his other moves doesn't have a lot of priority on it. So overall, I put him in 23rd. 22nd. 22nd is tough because the next two characters, I debate back and forth between who I like more and who I dislike more. But in 22nd, I'll go with Ness because, well, he has a pretty good combo game due to the double jump cancel, and he's got some pretty solid aerials too. Everything else about this character ranges from average to downright laughable. His range is pretty poor, his speed is pretty average to below average, and aside from Bowser, he might have the worst recovery in the game. It's really, really bad. It's not like Ultimate or Project Plus, where it's easy to control and you can get some good length on it, especially P+. Here, it's average to short in length, and it's very hard to control. It's so unwieldy. And the recovery makes his disadvantage state one of the worst disadvantage states in the entire game. Now, while his combo game is pretty good, and I think combos in a fast game like Melee is very important, I don't think it's enough to bump him up to low tier. If someone is playing him at top level, it's even impressive at that level because of his very lackluster toolkit. And I love Ness normally. He might be my favorite Smash character of all time, but To be frank, I don't want to play him in Melee, because his toolkit, aside from solid aerial combos, is just sad, or it's troubling at best. 21st, Roy. You could flip-flop these two, especially in F tier, and I wouldn't mind that much. Now, with Roy, the advantage he has over Ness especially is that his range is significantly better. He has a sword, and that's helpful, concerning outranging people and getting in. That makes his neutral game better than Ness. However, I must also say it's not much better, because it's the wet noodle sword. There are certain hitboxes in the middle of his sword that actually won't connect reliably, and it's because of that that certain hits just won't register, or they'll register at an awkward angle, and you won't be able to get the damage that you need. I think he has a few good options. I think I like his down tilt. His down tilt's pretty good, and his aerials can get some of the job done as well. And his F smash, if you time it right, can be a very reliable KO move, even though the ending lag leaves something to be desired. But with Roy, with his wet noodle sword and his attacks just being unreliable for the most part completely, along with Roy being someone who has poor recovery, is very vulnerable to crouch canceling, is pretty easy to combo himself due to being taller and fall speed, Roy does not fare well. And with Roy, he was someone back in the very early days of Melee, like pre-2006, where he was seen as a mid-tier character in some circles, but this isn't the case anymore. The longer time goes on, the more that people seem to think that he's all the way down here, and it makes sense as to why. Especially since the original character, Marth, is so incredibly solid. We'll get to him a lot later, quite frankly. So, I think those are the 6 trashy bottom tier characters. I think they're harder to use at top level. Now, if you were to put in enough work, then you can make them work in certain situations. However, it's going to be a lot harder, in my opinion, than these other 6 tiers. I think maining one of these is a good challenge, but a big challenge nonetheless. Now, low tiers. I probably put Mewtwo in 20th. I think with his double jump cancel combos, his good attack range, and how people can use his grabs well, he has some serious positives that elevate him above these characters. And unlike the bottom 6, we actually have people using him more regularly. I know Leffen uses him as an alternate sometimes, and Taj was using Mewtwo a lot back in the day. I think Mewtwo has significantly more potential than these bottom 6. But even still, at one point, on the very first list, he was actually considered to be the worst character in the game. And the reason why is because his weaknesses are very noticeable. He has possibly the largest hurt box in the entire game because his tail is a hurt box. So making him similar to Bowser in size, despite being a lightweight, is not going to be good for his disadvantage. Speaking of, you can KO Mewtwo pretty easily because he's floaty and he's on the lighter side. And yet he's a huge target, similar to Bowser. That makes his disadvantage state very scary. He does have a good recovery, which is good. And he does have good attack range, but concerning those things, you better use a lot of counterplay well so that you don't get KO'd early, because there's a high chance that it'll happen. And along with that, with Mewtwo, he has one of the most unreliable set of smash attacks in the whole game. F smash is pretty laggy, down smash is pretty laggy, and up smash doesn't even KO that well, and its range is pretty poor. Concerning KOs, I've seen this with Mewtwo, you have to rely a lot on forward air in order to get the job done. And you can do certain things with his aerials in order to net KOs easier, but concerning getting the job done, Mewtwo struggles quite a lot. But because of his solid aerials, concerning his combo game, and also his good recovery, I don't think he's someone who could be in contention for the worst character. I think he's certainly better than these 6. These 6 feel like a chore to play, while Mewtwo, while I personally don't like playing as him that much, I think it's significantly easier to use Mewtwo at top level than the F tiers. Now, looking at 19, I'm going to put Game & Watch. Game & Watch is the unfinished character out of all of them. If we had to pick one character who's unfinished, it's Game & Watch, because 3 out of his 5 aerials you can't even L cancel. And with his shield, it is unfinished. It's the only shield in the game that does not cover his body, so it's an absolutely useless shield. He's very light and easy to KO. His range can leave something to be desired as well. However, his strengths, while I do believe they don't outweigh his weaknesses, and I think his weaknesses outweigh his strengths, he has certain strengths that help him get elevated more. And Quirb particularly has put in good work with this character at national level. And with Game & Watch, he's got a very solid grab game. He's got very reliable chain grabs, and that can get a lot of damage fairly quickly. He's also got pretty good KO power. His smash attacks have good knockback to them, and they have disjoints, if I recall correctly. And his speed is pretty decent as well. So, he's got pretty solid combos concerning his grabs. He can move fairly fast, and that helps. And he can KO relatively well. I think by having the speed and the decent power factor, that elevates him more than where he could be. And I think this character can seriously get pushed in the future because of those strengths. You just have to be careful, especially with shield, because that shield, it's not going to cut it at all. Everyone knows that it's the worst shield in the game, and the worst shield in Smash Bros. History. But I think he could put in good work. You've seen it with Curb. He's a very great player, and I really respect him. He's a joy to watch when it comes to this character. Alright, 18th. I've gone back and forth with the next 3 characters, especially, but I think I would put Link. Now, concerning Link, he's got decent attack range and decent KO power, and I think his aerials are very helpful for combos and KOs. But he's got a lot of shaky matchups. He's got a lot of them, especially against the Spaceys. His recovery, unless you use bombs, is very linear and works slow. And the biggest issue with Link is that he's slow himself. In a game that's all about speed, Link is a character that, while he has strengths, I think the longer time goes on and the more speed is emphasized, if speed ends up continuing to be a very important factor in Melee, even compared to the average Smash game. In any Smash game, speed is very important, but it's even more important here because of the nature of all of the heavy hitting combos. I think Link will move down even lower than Game & Watch and possibly Mewtwo if that speed factor ends up continuing to be as important as it is. Because concerning his movement speed, it's very poor. Now, there are people that have used the character really well. Germ was a Link main. I don't think he's active anymore, but he did put in good work with the character. And I think the other Link main I can think of is Internet Explorer. And IE was a pretty solid Link main. But unfortunately for Link, because of his archetype, and because of the weaknesses on his various moves in general, although he has solid aerials in my opinion, his tilts, while they have some use, overall his kit is more lackluster. There are better options if you want to play a campy character. And we'll look at those campy characters in the future. Now, with looking at character 17, this is hard. As you can tell if you're looking at my cursor, it's either Young Link or Donkey Kong. I especially go back and forth between these two. I used to think Donkey Kong was about even with Link, but recently I've been higher on him. But I think for now I'm going to put Donkey Kong in 17th. Now, the thing with DK, in which I could see him rise up to D, is that he's got a pretty decent combo game, surprisingly. Even though he's a very heavy character, he's easy to combo himself, and his recovery is very shaky. DK is a character who can dish the damage well right back to you. Because he's got decent speed, he's got pretty solid aerials overall, namely back air and up air, and his neutral air is okay, but his back air and up air are very good. And he can use those well to set up for the Congo Punch KO. He's also a character that has the cargo throw, which is very helpful for combos, and that works well for him. But because his disadvantage state, with being very easy to combo and his poor recovery is just that poor and very scary in that regard, I'd probably still put him as a low tier character. But I think out of these characters that I'm ranking in E, he's one of the most likely to rise up to D because he's got decent speed despite being a heavyweight, and heavyweights are typically slower. And because of his solid aerials, I could see Donkey Kong rising in the future. Notable DK mains, Rishi is one, and while he doesn't main DK, Westballs will use him as an alternate. DK has some kind of player base, and considering the character's archetype being someone who's a heavyweight yet still has decent combos and speed anyway, I think he could rise up to mid-tier eventually, but for now I'm going to rank him here just to be safe. And I think the best of the bad characters is Young Link. I'm putting him at 16. Young Link is a character who unfortunately has not seen a lot of love lately. He's got pretty solid attack speed, and his combo game is fairly reliable. Despite having poor attack range, because of his good frame data on his aerials, he can get him some solid damage with his attacks. And I think that's very helpful for Young Link. However, because of his linear recovery, because he has a very hard time killing, you have to rely on his aerials, not even his smash attacks, but his aerials in order to land the KOs. That can hold the character back a lot. And he also has a lot of issues concerning matchups with the fast fallers and the medium fallers. He's at that weight where he's light, so he's fairly easy to KO, but he falls fast enough to the point where you can combo him fairly well. Now what helps him compared to the other low tiers like Link, his older self, or Mewtwo, is that he does surprisingly well against the floaties. I'd say his matchup with Jigglypuff is roughly even, and with Peach it's roughly even. It's probably Peach's slight favor, but he can still do pretty well there. And I think Samus is roughly even as well. Out of those three, people have used Yink as a counterpick against Jigglypuff. And that's helped him become a very solid counterpick against the floaties in general, but especially Jigglypuff, because people have learned that his combos work well against floaty characters. Young Link does it well. Unfortunately, we haven't seen him on the rise lately, but he's still a character that could move up to mid-tier on a different day. If we got more Yink players in there, I think he would rise. But for now, I'm going to put him here. Although similar to DK because of his speed, I could see either of them rise up to mid-tier in the future because of that speed, which is unlike Link, who is slow. Mewtwo has decent combos, but he's not the fastest character either. And ultimately, that's why I put them where they're at. Now, mid-tier, or the lower end of mid-tier. In 15th, I put Ganon. I think Ganondorf, he's a character that has a dedicated player base. Kage's been considered to be the best Ganon main for a long time, but and Eichelman, when they were active, both of them put in solid work with Ganondorf. However, he has gotten steadily worse the longer the meta has developed, and it's ultimately because of speed. Ganon is a strong character. He's got very solid aerials concerning KOing, If you get the read, he's a very solid character to use. He's pretty easy on the hands, which is very helpful concerning the reads, because you gotta work the mind especially well. But with looking at Ganondorf, because of his slow speed, that ultimately hurts him in this kind of meta, where speed matters a lot. Again, even more compared to the other Smash games. It's important in the other Smash games, but it's especially key here, where speed and combos are everything. And Ganondorf doesn't really have that. In a few years, I might actually drop him to low tier, and Young Link and Donkey Kong might even rise above him because of the slow speed, but also because of how his combo game is fairly limited. His recovery, while you do get that second jump back, and you can use that as a mix-up, it's still not the greatest recovery in the game, and he's a huge target. He's very easy to hit, he's pretty easy to combo, and while he's got some pretty solid aerials, overall his frame data can leave something to be desired as well. Overall, I think Ganon isn't that bad of a character. I think he's pretty alright. But he is one of those characters that I think will falter in the future because of his speed. Now, comparing him to E and F, I think his toolkit is overall more complete concerning the moves that he does have. But eventually, given time, I'm just saying I could see him fall lower because of that slow speed factor. And that is the most key reason as to why I'm putting him at the bottom of mid-tier. Right above him in 14th, I'm going to put Mario. And Mario is one of my favorite characters to use in this game. I love Mario. But unfortunately, he's not as good as he is in other games. And the biggest issue with Mario actually isn't, combos, because he's got pretty good combos. His speed is decent. And his recovery, while his super jump punch can be pretty linear, he can mix it up with the cape and also his Mario Tornado. Mario's recovery is pretty alright. So I'm not going to complain there. But the one biggest thing holding him back is his lack of KO moves. I don't even think his attack range is as big of an issue, because while his attack range is pretty poor, his limbs, while he does have pretty short limbs, thankfully his frame data on his moves is pretty decent overall. So you can still get in sometimes. And I think that helps with Mario's combos and approach. Fireball's an okay move, for approaching. I don't think it's as good as a certain projectile that his clone has, but we'll get to Doc later. With Mario, the big thing is that his KO moves are very unreliable. And with someone who's supposed to be a jack of all trades, he has that one key weakness, and if he didn't have it, I'd probably put him here, or even up in B tier, because he's got some seriously underrated combo games. And if you watch a rookie who's the best Mario main right now, or someone like Mango who'll pull out Mario on occasion, or Koopa Troopa, they put in some good work with the character. And I think Mario, while his tournament results aren't exactly great, and they're pretty poor to be honest, his theory is solid. But the one thing that's holding him back from being a higher tier character, like borderline high, is his F smash. You have to hit the sweet spot or else you're not going to KO your opponent until like 180. If you hit the sweet spot, you'll KO them at 100 or 110 and you're fine. But if it's sour spot, you wait until 180 and that's far too long. Down smash. It's fast and that's great. And it's probably his best move. But if you want it to KO fairly early, you're going to have to be towards the ledge, because it won't KO as well at the center of the stage, obviously. And the up smash. Up smash has decent knockback, and the frame data is alright, but concerning the range, it's not that good. It's not. It's not like Smash 4 or Ultimate, where the back hitbox is massive, and you can do turnaround up smash and you'll get the stock pretty easily. No, in Melee, because of its worst range, you have to time it really well in order to land the stock. And even then, it's better as a combo move, or a combo mix-up, not a KO move. So, with Mario, I think he has a lot going for him. I think his combo game is underrated. I think concerning getting in, it's better than what people say, even though he does have a range issue. His recovery is pretty good, not going to complain about that. His speed is pretty good too. But that KOing potential, it's just sad. And if it weren't that one thing, I think he'd be a lot higher. Now, I would now move on to C tier, because I think the last 13 characters are all fairly good in their own ways, and there aren't any weaknesses from here on out where I get sad, and I struggle to give positives about the characters. Well, I didn't do it as much down here concerning struggling, because I think these four especially have all significant strengths, especially Mario and Ganon. But any character from C tier and above, I think they're pretty decent characters, and there isn't that one glaring flaw where I think that they're possibly, probably, or certainly unviable at top level. 13th. In 13th, I would probably put Doc. Now, concerning Doc and the character who I'll put next, I flip-flop back and forth between both of them, but I think I'll put Doc here. I think that's more accurate. Compared to Mario, regular Mario, his range is slightly worse, but because of the priority on his moves, it doesn't matter too much. I think the vitamins that he throws is good as a projectile because it travels fairly far, and also it's got good priority. And the biggest difference between regular Mario and Doc is that while regular Mario is weak, Doc is strong. Doc has some seriously solid KO moves. His F smash KOs way earlier than Mario's concerning reliability. His down smash is also fairly strong. I like his forward air, and forward air is his most reliable KO move. And we've seen what people like Shroomed and Franz can do with the character. And while Shroomed is now Sheik main, I kind of wish he stayed with Doc personally, but ultimately it's up to him. Not going to complain. Doc is someone who has very solid moves. He's got a solid toolkit. And also, I must say, for a while, people, I'll say casual players, thought that Doc was slightly slower, but aside from his neutral A triple kick move, he's got the same stats as Mario concerning speed and frame data. So the speed thing, it's a myth concerning Melee. If you were to look at other games like Smash 4 and Ultimate, yeah, it's different there, but not here. Now, even with his good stats, his range is pretty poor. It's one of the worst attack ranges in the game. Even compared to regular Mario, Doc's attack range is a little worse on a few of his moves. Down air is one of them. Forward smash is another. Neutral A. In the air. Neutral air. I think Doc has a lot going for him. I think he's got decent speed, and he's got very solid KO moves. He's got a good combo game. But because of his poor recovery, because of how short it is, and also with his poor attack range, it's holding him back a little bit. But Doc is still an okay character, and I think he's certainly better than Mario and Ganon. That's for sure. Now, 12th, Luigi. Luigi is the other character that I would put in C tier. He hasn't had as many good results lately, but he's still a character that has a significant player base. You look at Abate, Eddie Mexico as two examples of people that have pushed Luigi well. And the biggest aspect of Luigi that helps him is his wave dash. He's got the best wave dash in the game. And that makes his speed very solid. He can do combos out of it, and he's already got very solid aerials for combos and KOs. Nair is very good for combos and a get out of jail free card because of its priority. His forward air is good for combos and KOs. I like his back air. His up air is fairly solid. His down air is very good for KOs. Luigi's got moves. His up tilt is also good, especially if you use it in a wave dash. So overall, it seems like Luigi has a fairly good kit. His range is fairly short, but you can get around it better with that great wave dash. So what's holding back Luigi? His recovery is linear, and that's the main thing. Out of the Marios, his recovery is better than Doc's because you can add more variety to it, and it goes longer, but it's not as good as his brother Mario's. Mario has the best recovery of these three because he has the most options, and because of that, he gets the most mileage. Mario's recovery, I think, is pretty decent, and he's also got the wall jump. I'm not sure if Luigi has the wall jump too. I'd have to check with that. But Luigi's a character that his recovery is pretty shaky. And his attack range, while it's better than Mario and Doc as well, Luigi's attack range is still kind of shaky. It's average to poor. And those two things can make certain matchups a pain. Falco and Fox, because of their edge guarding, I think Luigi is someone who struggles significantly against them. I think Marth is especially a chore because Marth has great attack range and he can spike you very easily. So I think those three characters give Luigi a lot of trouble concerning recovering and stuff like that. Now, Luigi can do well against other higher tier characters. I think he does fairly well against Samus and Pikachu, as an example. And I think he does fairly well against Puff, too. But concerning Luigi, he's someone who is a pretty good character, but there are a couple things that are glaring enough flaws to the point where there's certain matchups, in my opinion, the Spaceys and Marth, that may leave a player sweating. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the B tier. We've finished with C tier, and now let's get into B. And the first B tier character that I would put is Samus. In my opinion, Samus is the lowest ranked character on here that can win majors and do so fairly consistently if the players are on top of their game. With Samus, she's one of the most balanced characters in the roster. She's got a solid wave dash, she's got decent movement options, her projectile game is pretty solid, she can camp fairly well, and concerning survivability, it's pretty good because she's heavier because of that armor. Her recovery is very good, she's got plenty of options with that. I think the one weakness holding her back is that she's got very shaky KO options. While her F smash is strong and goes out pretty far, concerning a lot of her other tools, she's got good down smash, I like that. But up smash is totally useless. It's totally useless. And her back air, concerning her aerials, if you want to land KOs, you're going to have to use back air a lot in order to do so. Her up air is pretty decent, but it's not as good as Sheik's. You can combo with it, but you can't KO with it reliably. And with Samus, she's got pretty solid tools, but they're not as good or strong as the characters ranked above her. And that's really why she ranks where she is. Because she's a very solid character, but is simply not as good as the ones ranked above her, in my opinion. I think people like Hugs and Plup, those guys are very solid with the character and can put in great work with Samus. I think Samus is a very neat character. I like her in this game, but she's just not as good as the ones above her, in my opinion. Number 10, and this is very hard because I think the next three slots are all very close together. In 10th, I would put Yoshi right above Samus. I think Amsa is incredible. We've seen what he can do with the character. He's seriously pushed the character and has proven Yoshi as a worthy opponent. A few years ago, I think about a decade ago, Yoshi was considered to be a bottom tier, and now look where he's at. He used to be bottom 6 in the game, and now he's top 10. And he's seldom ranked below the top 10 nowadays. I think Yoshi is a very solid character. He's got good combos with double jump cancel, and he's one of the better double jump cancel characters in the game. Along with that, he's a character that, if you set it up well, then he can KO fairly early. And that's the tough part, because Yoshi is one of the hardest characters to master in the game. You have to press a lot of buttons, you have to do in very quick succession, even for melee standards. And that makes Yoshi very tough to master, but once you get there, Yoshi is a very good character to play as if you want a character who's fast, has good combos, and has pretty good KO power. And he's got a lot of keys there concerning being a good melee character. In melee, you want to have those good combos, you want to be fast, you want to KO pretty well, and Yoshi has that. AMSA has also revolutionized the use of his egg tools. Eggs are good for approaching, and they're good for spacing, and they're even good as a mix-up tool. Yoshi has very solid options, but with that, his recovery is bad, and that's one of the biggest weaknesses holding him back. His recovery is very poor because of how floaty he is. Despite being a medium to large-ish target, you can combo him somewhat easily, and those are two things holding him back. But overall, that's not as glaring as the flaws of characters below him, and couple that with how AMSA has really helped flesh out the character, and I think Yoshi is very solid. I think he's pretty good. 9th, Pikachu. We have Axe, who is one of the best players today, who's even better than AMSA, and AMSA is already incredibly good at this game. Axe is a person who has pushed Pikachu very well, and Pikachu as well won his first ever major recently, I think at Smash and Splash or Smash Summit. It was sometime in late 2019, and Axe finally did it with Pikachu, and it was such a joy to see. And we've seen this character rise from the mid-low tiers. He was ranked anywhere from 16th to 18th for the longest time, and now a lot of people put him in 8th or 9th or 10th at worst. Pika's got very solid combos. He feels like a shorter, chubbier fox because he's got very solid combos in the air, but his tilts are also useful, and he's got an incredibly strong up smash. It's even stronger than Fox's up smash concerning knockback. And when you have a move that's stronger than one that Fox has, you know you're in good somewhere. But with looking at Pikachu, with looking at his character, we've seen what Axe can do with him, and I think that's very good. I think other characters have certainly better tournament results because of their massive player bases, but Axe has proven that Pikachu is a good character. Pikachu's got decent KO options with his aerials and his up smash especially, and we've seen his combo game be very solid, and it is solid, and he's fast, got good recovery, but his range is poor. And that's one of the things holding him back. Pikachu's range is not good. It can be tough to get in with certain moves. I think his up air can be helpful for having some kind of ranged tool, and back air as well. But in general, Pikachu doesn't have good ranged options, and that can cause him to get outwalled fairly easily by certain characters. Not to mention his grab range is the worst in the game, even worse than Pichu's and Ness's. And how you manage that, I don't know. But Pikachu, he's got a solid up throw concerning chain grabs, but it's so hard to pull it off. And while his toolkit overall is good, there are certain weaknesses where you think, man, if he was changed just slightly, then just imagine how great he would be. But overall, he's still a pretty solid character, even with those weaknesses. And I think Pikachu is a character that may rise even higher in the future, especially considering who I'm going to rank in 8th at the top of B tier, which is Ice Climbers. Ices has the Wobble. It is the most overpowered punish tool in the game. They have the best grab game in the roster because of Wobble. And also, they've got good attack power concerning KOing your opponent, and they have decent speed. But here is the thing with Ices. If wobbling is allowed, then I would even put them up in A tier, because if a character gets in with Wobble, then you can compete with any of the top players if you use it right. But if wobbling is banned, considering how the results have gotten worse lately, and looking at the rise of Pikachu and Yoshi, I might actually put Ices even down here, in between Yoshi and Samus. Because without Wobble, the Ices still have good attack power and decent speed. They still have some combos, but without Wobble, a lot of their punish and damage game goes away instantly, and they're not characters that can rack up the damage without Wobble as quickly as other characters within their range. Nana's also stupid. The AI has never been good for her. And with characters that can separate them well, players have learned how to separate the Ices well, and that poses a challenge for Ice Climbers players. I think we still see a lot of great Ices players, like Fly Amanita, or Nintendude, or, of course, Wobbles himself. Now, with looking at Ices, I think they're very solid characters. I think they have a lot of good tools, especially with that grab that is so obnoxious and painful. But I think wobbling being allowed versus wobbling being banned can highly dictate their tier level at top level. And if wobbling is allowed, then they can compete with the A tiers and even the S tiers in certain situations. But if wobbling is banned, they're about at Samus level, where they're still good, but there's something missing from them. And they're barely in that, for sure, viable range. So I figure that top of B would be a good middle ground. But if wobbling does get banned more and more, then they'll fall lower than Pikachu and lower than Yoshi, and be around the Samus range. But for now, we'll put them here. Now, high tiers. A. 7th is Captain Falcon, and 6th is Peach. Now, the reason why I'm ranking them at the same time is because they are the most close together characters in the entire roster, in my opinion, concerning the tier list I have right now. I could easily see Captain Falcon being 6th, I could easily see Peach being 7th, and concerning the razor-thin separation, it's more real here for me than any other character. Because concerning the amount of brokenly good moves that each character has, I think Peach outnumbers Falcon in that regard. That down smash is very good. Peach is the best double jump cancel character in the game. She can edge guard extremely well if you use her right. We see Peach just wreck people when Armada was still playing actively at top level. But even then, we've seen plenty of other European Peaches, and even certain American Peaches, really put in the work with the character. Now, despite the theory of Peach being better, in my opinion, when you consider double jump cancel, floating, her aerials, down smash, and turn up jank as well, now that I think about it, Captain Falcon has better tournament results, and he's easier to play concerning ceiling. And because of his tools and how they work, you can get more consistency out of Falcon. And with Captain Falcon, he's someone who's also got a very strong player base. Wizrobe is one of my favorite Falcon mains. S2J is another key Falcon player. Captain Falcon, he's one of the more balanced characters in the game. While Knee is very strong, it's very good, not a lot of his other moves are that overpowered or oppressive. He's got a good aerial game, and his tilts can be helpful. His gentleman combo is pretty solid overall. But overall, Falcon is someone who I feel like is fairly well balanced. And by feel like, I should probably say he is, more accurately. Because if you look at his toolkit, he doesn't widely have broken damage moves or certain quirks that can seriously elevate his potential ceiling. So I think, concerning overall, he's someone that you can pick up and be more consistent with compared to Peach. And he also has very solid tournament results right now. He's had a bit of a renaissance lately. But with looking at Peach, her moveset potential is higher, in my opinion, because of what we've seen the character do in the past and because of all the special quirks that she does have. Like that ridiculously strong down smash, and also the floating with her moves, aerial game. I think with Falcon, the only key weakness that he has, there's two. He's pretty easy to combo, and his recovery is pretty poor. With Peach, because she's floaty, she's easy for characters to combo and KO in the air and juggle. Like, the Jigglypuff Peach matchup is not good for Peach. Puff can really wreck her. And it's those situations where I think, well, Peach, in certain matchups, Peach might be worse than Falcon, but it's a tough call. And overall, I would still put Peach in 6th, but it's a very close 6th to Falcon's 7th. Now we look at the top 5. I think 5th place is Sheik, because with looking at Sheik's character, Sheik is a character whom used to be considered the best, and there's good reason why. She has a very reliable toolkit. She's a character that's fast, has very good grabs, has a very solid combo game, and her toolkit is fairly complete. And by fairly, I mean, compared to the top tiers, they have more complete movesets. But if you look at a lot of these other characters, Sheik's moveset is amazing. She's got a lot of good grab combos on a lot of the lower characters. Her tilts are good overall, her aerials are good overall. And Sheik has a lot of solid, reliable tools. And that's very important to have. Her recovery can be a little short, and her short hop isn't that good, so it can make certain combo situations harder to master or achieve. But concerning the amount of tools that she does have, her forward air is very good, her F tilt is solid, I like her down smash, her up smash, those moves are very good. She's got a good neutral air, she's got a very solid up air, her needles are solid, her grabs are solid, but especially her down throw. You could tell that Sheik has a lot of very solid options. Having options is very good. Now, despite her very good matchup chart, and despite her very varied toolkit, her matchups are not as good as the top 4, and we haven't seen a solo Sheik win a major in a long time. Now, there are people who have used her as one of their characters, like Mewtwo uses Sheik a lot, and so does Plup, but Mewtwo primarily a Marth main. And with looking at situations like that, it can be very difficult to say that she's good as the top 4, because, well, she is a character that could win a major because of how solid she is. She hasn't done it in a while, and the meta is shifting and has been placed with a certain 4 characters that we'll get to, because they have slightly better toolkits, and also the results show that and prove that. But Sheik is still a very solid character. I think she's a very good choice to use in this game. And overall, I think Sheik is a very good character pick. So, top 4, I think all of them are S tier. I think Falco, Fox, Puff, and Marth, they're all top tiers for various reasons. And with these 4, I think they're certainly the best 4 characters in the game. I haven't met a person in a long time that thinks that one of these 4 isn't in the top 4. I'd say ever since 2017, I haven't seen a single person rank any of these 4 below 4th. So, and concerning how the meta has been going, it makes sense as to why. As far as how I would rank them, right now, I'd probably put Jigglypuff in 4th. Now, if you were to look at tournament results, you could make an argument that she is first because of how HBox, Hungrybox, has taken tournaments left and right for a long time. And while he's cooled off on the wins a little bit, he's still one of the best players in the world. It's like him, Mango, and Leffen are the top 3 right now. While he's not clearly first anymore, he's still really good. And you can see how strong the character is by looking at her toolkit. We've seen that so many HBox matches over the years, where we see how oppressive back air is. Rest can kill you at 40%. She's got a very, very strong air game, and the strongest air game in the entire roster because of that oppressive back air, how you can combo with it, how you can edge guard with it, how you can KO with it. Forward air is very good. Her down air is solid. Her neutral air, you can even put in work with that. And up air is very solid for setting up KO moves like Rest, but along with that, other aerials like back air and forward air. And overall, she's got high knockback on those KO moves. It's not just Rest. She also has good knockback on her back air as well. And if you time it right, her F smash is very strong too. Her recovery is the best in the game as well. I should probably mention that. There are so many tools that Puff has at her disposal, but the best part about her is that she's one of the easier characters to master in the game because of how simple and also intuitive her kit is. That's something to sneeze at. But the one big weakness that she has is that she's as light as a feather. It can be very easy to KO her, and that's why Fox is probably the only significant losing matchup that she has in the game, because he's got all those KO moves that he needs to KO Puff. His F smash is the second strongest in the game. Along with that, his back air gets the work done. His up air gets the work done. His F smash gets the work done. His down smash gets the work done. There are a lot of moves that KO Puff very early, not only because she's one of the lightest characters in the game, and not only because she's the floatiest character in the game. If she's not the floatiest, then she's second floatiest. It's either her or Zelda. But with looking at Puff, she's a character that can die very quick. And if, despite her moves being intuitive and very strong, if you are not careful in disadvantaged state, you can die like that with a snap of your fingers. It doesn't take long. And that is the one thing that I think is holding her back from being the best character in the game. Because everything else, she's got it all. She's got good KO power. She's very fast in the air. She's got great combos in the air. She can KO pretty well. And her ledge grabs, concerning camping, she can camp you really well with the ledge grab, but she can do that with back air and forward air too, especially back air. She's got the best camping game in the roster, arguably, and I think she has the best air game, unarguably. Because of those oppressive strengths, it's safe to say that Puff is a top tier, even though Hungrybox's results have cooled off a little bit. And even though outside of HBox, it can be hard to find a top Puff main. Now, I think Puff is still a fairly, popular character at top level. But it's not to the same level as the top 3. And third, I'm going to put Falco. Now, Falco and Puff are pretty close together. If you were to have me do a tier list a year ago, I probably would have put Puff in third and Falco in fourth. Because at that point, HBox was just dominating left and right, rather than still dominating, but not being as dominating. With Falco, he's a character that, while he has a lot of good tools, people see him as a worse Fox to a certain degree. And while his recovery is worse, for sure, Fox's, while linear in some regards, is still pretty good. Falco's is kind of poor if you don't mix it up well. And concerning Falco, he's one of the easiest characters to combo in the game. And that doesn't help him either. He might be even easier than Fox concerning how easily he gets comboed, but at the same time, I think we underrate at times a lot of Falco's strengths. Because Falco has an amazing combo game, he has the best down air in the game, his shine, while being shorter range than Fox's, yes, is still very reliable for combos, he can KO very well horizontally, and he even has decent moves vertically. Like down air is good for spiking, it's one of the two true spikes in the game. You can also KO well with shine against floaties up at the ceiling of the stage if you're given the opportunity. His up smash is fairly good, but his forward smash and down smash especially, and also his back air, are three of the most reliable KO moves in the game. You couple that with his very solid lasers, he's got a solid camping game, and he's got pretty good speed too. It's not blazingly fast, but it's still pretty good. Falco's a character that stacks up really well, and he has the results to prove it. Mango, his best character is Falco. We've seen Falco take majors fairly well recently, and more frequently than in past years, in the past couple of years. And Falco is a character where you have a lot of strengths at your disposal, and he is hard to master. He is. But he's so much fun. He might be my favorite character to watch in all of Melee bracket. It's either him or Captain Falcon. In my opinion, they were the two most hyped characters in the entire roster. Unless you use one of the F tiers. If you use an F tier, mad props. But in any event, Falco's a character who has a lot of great combos, a lot of great smash attacks. He has basically everything at his disposal, and then some. If his recovery just wasn't so iffy, then I think he'd be the best character in the game. These two, Fox and Marth. I would put Marth in second. Now, there are some who would put Falco in second, and I'd understand why. But with looking at Marth, Marth has been very, very solid lately. With looking at Marth, there's this movement where people think that Fox actually might have a losing matchup now, when in past years it was said that he had a perfect matchup spread. Now people are saying that he might actually have a losing matchup against Marth. I don't think so. I think it's fairly even, but it's still Fox's hardest matchup probably. Marth has amazing combos. He has one of the strongest grabs in the game, probably the strongest grab. He's got good mobility. His attack range is the best in the game. The Ken combo is infamous for being very good at securing the KO off stage, of course. And because of how he's got a great wave dash, good speed, very solid combos, good KO options too, especially with the tipper, Martha's a character that does very well. And he's got the reliable matchup chart to prove it. He's got the reliable results as well. Zane puts in a lot of amazing work with the character. We've seen Marth do great with Mewtwo King as well. And there are so many other Marth mains. The Moon is another one. There are so many other Marth mains that I could name, but I can't because there are seriously so many. I think Marth might be the second most popular character in the game. It makes sense as to why, because he's got a lot of amazing tools. His recovery can be a bit linear. You can mix it up a little bit, but it can be a bit linear. And because he's on the floaty side and he's a bigger target, you can combo him fairly well. I think he probably loses the Sheik matchup, and Puff can be hard. But overall Marth can get around those issues fairly well. And if you can get around those issues fairly well because of the amount of strengths you have, then being a top tier, it's not something that is unpredictable. It's not something that's outlandish. Not here. And finally, first place, Fox McCloud. This is the most popular character to put in first. I've seen people put the other three in first place on occasion, but Fox is almost unanimously considered to be the best character in Melee. And there's good reason why. He's the most popular character. He has the best matchup spread in the game. He has the best toolkit in the game. You can't really complain about Fox concerning his toolkit because he's got it all. He has the best move in the game with Shine. It's great for combos, especially Wave Shine. You can edge guard with it really well. And while it's not as popular at top level, you can still use it to reflect projectiles. Now, it's far more optimal as an edge guard tool and as a combo tool, but you can still use it as a tool that reflects projectiles. So it can be very helpful there. And it activates on frame 1. And unlike Falco's Shine, the range is very solid. Falco's Shine activates on frame 1 and has decent range, but it's not as good as Fox's. Fox's has better range, and you can get in a lot better with Fox's Shine compared to Falco. Fox is also one of the fastest characters in the game. He's second in dash speed behind Captain Falcon, and his frame data is incredibly good. It's the best frame data in the roster. He can combo you extremely well. His moves are extremely fast, and he's also got very good KO ability. He's one of the stronger characters in the game despite being a lightweight. Fox is a character that has up smash. He has back air. He has forward smash. He has down smash. He has up air. You can link into up air by doing up throw into up air. There are so many. Shine is another KO move that he can use. And you can also use up tilt as well at higher percents. Fox has so many KO options. And if you combine his insanely high amount of combo options with his very high amount of KO options, that's very good right there. And his recovery is a little telegraphed with his slow startup. But you can angle it in 362 different ways. You can shorten the Fox illusion as well. So while his recovery could be better, it's certainly not bad. It's a pretty alright recovery. The only weaknesses he really has is that he's pretty easy to combo because he falls fast, and thus if you're playing Marth, you can up throw, chain grab him pretty well. And also, because of his lightweight, he can be easy to KO. But thankfully, he does have a solid recovery overall, which helps him in that department a little bit. But overall, Fox, he's got so many options. I don't think there's a single truly bad move in his toolkit aside from the AAA kicks. And even then, it's the AAA kicks. That's just one move. And it's the only move in his toolkit that I would say, yeah, it's pretty poor. But even then, if you were to use the first jab of AAA, then it suddenly becomes a good move because it links into up smash. So there's that. And with Fox, he's got so many players. Mangu uses him. Leffen uses him. Armada used him as a secondary when he was still active. We also have Lovage. We've got Drugged Fox. We have Android. We have IBDW. We have Fat Goku. I'm trying to think of more Fox players, but there are so many different Fox players. I'm missing so many, and I wish I wasn't. But you can see with Fox, he's a character that has so many options and evidence for being the best that I could not place him anywhere below first. I think Fox is the best character in the game. I've thought this way for a long time. Even when Hungrybox was at his peak, I thought Fox was the best character in the game. And Puff was like roughly tied for second with Marth. So overall, that's my tier list. Figured it would be interesting to go through all the characters and why I think they're in the positions that they are. I think these four overall are fairly close to each other. I think these three are fairly close. These four, these two, these five, and these six. And that is my ranking for Melee. Thanks for watching.